Hello, and welcome to the Stardog Academy training on database administration. I'm Michael Soren. To let you know a bit more about me, I'm a software engineer at Stardog that works with NASA's data integration team to enable information sharing and exchange across the enterprise from previously unconnected databases and systems. Today, I'm going to walk you through foundational concepts around Stardog database administration. In this training session, you will learn how to understand Stardog's available user interface options, gain an understanding of basic database operations, and as an administrator, configure a couple of aspects of the Stardog server. Let's get started. This section is about Stardog's user interfaces. Stardog provides two different user interfaces for managing and querying the server. Studio is an easy-to-use graphical user interface, giving users access to the most commonly used functionality. Studio is available in the Firefox and Chrome browsers at https://stardog.studio. For those more comfortable using the command line, Stardog also provides a command line interface, or CLI. The command line interface is compact and includes the complete functionality to administer and query Stardog. Due to security considerations, the CLI comes in two parts. The first part, the Stardog admin command, is the administration client and provides the commands to manage and control the Stardog server. The second part, the Stardog command, is the user client and provides the commands to query and manipulate the data in the database. This concludes the section on user interfaces. This section is about Stardog's database operations. In the examples in this section, we will use a database called Star Wars that contains data about the Star Wars movie. The first operation we will discuss is creating a database. To create an empty database in Studio, first click the blue database icon, then click the Create Database button. In the window that appears, type in the name of the database to be created and select a configuration for the database. In this case, we'll simply select the defaults, then click the green Create button. To create an empty database using the command line interface, issue the command stardog admin db create -n Star Wars. Some database options or properties can only be set at creation time. These properties are known as immutable properties. In Studio, as before, click the blue database icon, then click the Create Database button. In the window that appears, type in the name of the database to be created, then click the middle radio button to manually set those immutable properties below. Alternatively, a properties file can also be used to configure database properties. Click the Use File radio button on the right. Once the properties are configured as desired, click the green Create button. In the command line interface, immutable properties can be set with the -O option. To create an empty database called Star Wars with the edge.properties option enabled, use the command stardog admin db create -O edge.properties equals true -n Star Wars. Alternatively, the -C option can be used to configure database properties using a properties file. Use the command stardog admin db create -C starwars.properties -n Star Wars, where starwars.properties is a properties file containing the properties to be set. The next database operation we will discuss is loading data into a database. Using Studio, First, click the Load Data button. In the window that appears, click the Browse button to navigate to the file containing the data. Select the file format and compression as necessary, then click the green Load button. The data in the file will be loaded into the database. Using the command line interface, to load data into an existing Star Wars database from a file called starwarsdata.ttl, use the following command: Stardog admin data add Star Wars /data /stardog /starwarsdata.ttl. The next database option we will discuss is viewing or changing the status of a database. A database's status must be set to offline before certain mutable database properties can be changed. Using Studio, first click the blue Databases icon, then click the desired database. At the top, move the database status switch to set the database offline or online. Using the command line interface, use the following command to show the status of the Star Wars database. This command will print out the current status of the Star Wars database. To change the status of the Star Wars database to offline, use the command Stardog admin db offline Star Wars. The next database operation we will discuss is viewing or changing properties of a database. Using Studio, first click the blue Databases icon, then click the database whose properties you wish to view or change. Then click the Properties button and scroll below to view property settings. Since some properties can only be changed while the database is offline, slide the database status switch on top to set the status to offline. Make property changes as desired. Then click the blue Save Changes button. If the database was set offline, set it back online. To view or change database properties using the command line interface, use the Stardog admin metadata command. The command Stardog admin metadata get Star Wars will print out all properties of the Star Wars database. You can also view a particular property of the database using the metadata get command with the -o option. For example, the command Stardog admin metadata get -o search.enabled Star Wars will print out the value of the search.enabled property. To change the value of a database property, use the metadata set command. For example, Stardog admin metadata set -o search.enabled equals true --Star Wars. Use --, to separate the list of options from the database name. Since the database needs to be offline in order to change the search.enabled property, first issue the command to set the database offline. Stardog admin db status offline Star Wars. Once the database is offline, the search.enabled property can be set to true using the following command: Stardog admin metadata set -o search.enabled equals true --Star Wars. Now that the property is set, issue the command to set the database back online. Stardog admin db status online Star Wars. The next database operation we will discuss is viewing or stopping running queries. Using Studio, first click the blue Databases icon, then select the Star Wars database. The running queries are displayed. If desired, click the Stop button to kill the associated running query, or the Stop All button to stop all running queries. Using the command line interface, the following command lists all running queries. Stardog admin query list. Issuing the following command stops running query with ID 35. Stardog admin query kill 35. The next database operation we will discuss is backing up a database. Backup creates a physical copy of a database and its metadata. A backup can be performed while the database is online. Other activity continues, but data updates after the process begins will not be in the backup. By default, backups are stored in the directory .backup in the Stardog home directory. This location can be changed by setting the backup.dir server property in the stardog.properties file in the Stardog home directory. To specify a location outside of Stardog home, use the --2 option or set the backup.location server property in the stardog.properties file in the Stardog home directory. The backup command is not available in the Studio interface and can only be run using the command line interface. For example, the command to back up the Star Wars database is stardog admin db backup Star Wars. On the flip side, the restore operation creates a new database from a backup. The -n option specifies the name of the new database. The location of the backup should be the full path to the backup. Like the backup operation, the restore operation can only be run using the command line interface. From the previous example, the following command restores a backup located in the specified directory. Stardog admin db restored /stardog home /.backup /Star Wars /2020-11-30. Different than a physical backup, the contents of a database can be saved into a standard RDF file with an export operation. Using Studio, click the blue Databases icon, select the desired database, then click the Export Database button. In the window that appears, select the file format to be exported, and then click the green Export button. Using the command line interface, the following command saves the contents of the Star Wars database to the file starwars.rdf in RDF XML format. Stardog data export --format RDF/XML Star Wars starwars.rdf. The next database operation we will discuss is optimizing a database. Performing this operation optimizes the indexes of a database. This is most useful after the database has been heavily modified. The Stardog server must be running. Using Studio, click the blue Databases icon, select the desired database, and click the Optimize button. Using the command line interface, running the following command will optimize the Star Wars database. Stardog admin db optimize Star Wars. The next database operation we will discuss is repairing a database, which attempts to repair a corrupted database. This operation can only be run from the command line interface. The Stardog server must be running and the database must be offline. The following command will attempt to repair the Star Wars database. Stardog admin db repair Star Wars. On the flip side of creating a database can be dropped, which means deleted. Using Studio, click the blue Databases icon, select the database to delete, then click the Drop Database button. Using the command line interface, the following command drops the Star Wars database. Stardog admin db drop Star Wars. This concludes the section on database operations. I will now demonstrate using these basic database operations on a small Star Wars database. I will first demonstrate these operations using the Studio interface and then afterward using the command line interface. First, I will create an empty database called Star Wars with the default configuration. To do that, I click the Create Database button, type in the database name, Star Wars in this instance, and click the green Create button. An empty database called Star Wars has been created. As you can see, the triple count is 0. The flip side of this, deleting or dropping a database, is also easy. I will now delete the database I just created. To do that, I click the databases icon on the left, select the database I want to delete, Star Wars in this instance, and click the red Drop Database button. A confirmation dialog pops up, and I click Yes to confirm deletion of the Star Wars database. The Star Wars database has now been deleted. Now I will create an empty database called Star Wars again, but this time I'm also going to enable one of the immutable properties, edge properties. Enabling edge properties allows RDF statements to appear as subjects of RDF statements, also known as RDF star. To do that, I click the Create Database button as before, type in a database name, click the Manually Set Immutable Properties radio button, click the checkbox next to Edge Properties, and then click the green Create button. An empty database called Star Wars with Edge Properties enabled has now been created. Now I'm going to load data from a file on my computer into the empty Star Wars database. To do that, I click the Load Data button and click the Browse button and navigate to the location of the file containing the data to be loaded, and click Open. I select the file format, which is Turtle in this instance. I then select the compression. Since the file is not in compressed format, I leave the file compression selection as blank. I then click the green Load button. The data has been loaded into the Star Wars database, and as you can see, the triple count has changed from 0 to 87. Now I'm going to demonstrate how to view and change the status of a database. As you can see here at the top, this database status slider indicates the status of the Star Wars database. Right now, the slider is on the right and highlighted, indicating that the Star Wars database is online. I can drag the slider to the left to set the Star Wars database offline. To set it back online, I drag the slider back to the right, and as you can see, the Star Wars database is once again online. Now I'm going to view the properties of the database and then change one of them, the Enable Search property. The Enable Search property enables the full text search index for the database, so I could then search for any text in the database. To do this, I click Properties for the database. I can then use this text box to search for the property I'm looking for. If I type in search, you can now see that the Enable Search property now appears just below. If I try to click the checkbox, I get a message that this option can only be set when the database is offline. I can then use the database status slider on top to set the database offline. And now I can check the checkbox to set the Enable Search property. I click the blue Save button to save my property changes. And then I go back to the database status slider on the top to set the database back online. Now I'm going to demonstrate exporting a database, which copies the contents of the database into a standard RDF file. To do that, I click Admin for the database, then click the Export Database button. A dialog opens to allow me to save the file on my computer. I select the desired file format, which is RDF XML in this case, and click the green Export button. A dialog opens to allow me to save the file on my computer, and I click the Save button. Now I'm going to demonstrate how to optimize a database. This operation optimizes the indexes of a database after it has been heavily modified. To do that, simply click the Optimize button. The Star Wars database has now been optimized. This concludes the studio portion of the demonstration on database operations. I will now demonstrate basic database operations using the command line interface. First, I will create an empty database called Star Wars with the default configuration. To do that, I use the Stardog admin db create command like this. Stardog admin db create -n Star Wars. The -n option specifies the name of the database to be created. An empty database called Star Wars has been created. To delete the database I just created, I use the Stardog admin db drop command like this. Stardog admin db drop Star Wars. The Star Wars database has now been deleted. As before, I will now create an empty database called Star Wars again, but this time I'm going to enable one of the immutable properties, edge properties. To do that, I use the Stardog admin db create command with the -o option to enable edge properties like this. Stardog admin db create -o edge.properties equals true -n Star Wars. An empty database called Star Wars with edge properties enabled has now been created. Now I'm going to load data from a file on my computer into the empty Star Wars database. To do that, I use the Stardog data add command like this. Stardog data add Star Wars.ttl. The data has now been loaded into the Star Wars database. For better performance, data can be loaded at the same time the database is created. To demonstrate that, I will first delete the Star Wars database again and recreate it, this time loading the data at creation time. To delete the Star Wars database, I use the command Stardog admin db drop Star Wars. The Star Wars database has now been deleted. To create the Star Wars database and load it with data all at once, I simply add the name of the file containing the data to load at the end of the Stardog admin db create command, like this. Stardog admin db create -n Star Wars.ttl. The Star Wars database has now been created and loaded with the data from the specified file. As you can see, 87 triples were loaded to the database. To view the status of a database, I use the Stardog admin db status command, like this. Stardog admin db status Star Wars. As you can see, the status of the database is printed out. Note that the online or offline status is also reported along with other statistics. To change the status of a database to offline, I use the Stardog admin db offline command, like this. Stardog admin db offline Star Wars. The Star Wars database has now been set offline. To set the status back online, I use the Stardog admin db online command, like this. Stardog admin db online Star Wars. The Star Wars database has now been set back online. To view properties of the database, I use the Stardog admin metadata get command, like this. Stardog admin metadata get Star Wars. And as you can see, a long list of properties is printed out. If I want to view just one property, for example, the search.enabled property, I use the Stardog admin metadata get command with the -o option, like this. Stardog admin metadata get -o search.enabled Star Wars. You can see the search.enabled property is set to false. Suppose I want to set the search.enabled property to true. I would use the Stardog admin metadata set command with the -o option, setting the value like this. Stardog admin metadata set -o search.enabled equals true -- Star Wars. As we saw before, I cannot change the search.enabled property while the database is online. As such, I will set it offline first, then change the property before setting it back online. I do this with the following commands. Stardog admin db offline Star Wars. Then Stardog admin metadata set -o search.enabled equals true -- Star Wars. As you can see, the search.enabled property was successfully set. I will now set the Star Wars database back online with the command Stardog admin db online Star Wars. The database Star Wars is now back online. Backing up a database creates a physical copy of the database and its metadata. This operation can only be done through the command line interface. To do that, I use the Stardog admin db backup command, like this. Stardog admin db backup Star Wars. A database backup has now been performed, and it's located by default in the Stardog home directory under .backup. In this instance, users msoren stardog home .backup Star Wars 2021-0407. To restore a database from a backup, I use the Stardog admin db restore command with the -n for the restored database name and giving it the full path to the backup, like this. Stardog admin db restore -n Star Wars 2 users msoren Stardog home .backup Star Wars 2021-04-07. I've now created a duplicate database called Star Wars 2. Now I'm going to demonstrate exporting a database, which copies the contents of the database into a standard RDF file. I use the Stardog data export command, specifying the desired output format like this. Stardog data export -- format RDF XML Star Wars users msoren demo Star Wars.rdf. This command produces a file with the database contents in RDF XML format. Now I'm going to demonstrate how to optimize a database, which optimizes the indexes of a database after it has been heavily modified. To do that, I use the Stardog admin db optimize command, like this. Stardog admin db optimize Star Wars. The database has now been optimized. This concludes the demonstration on database operations. This section is about Stardog server administration. In this section, we will discuss 3 topics about configuring the Stardog server. First, configuring server memory, and there are 2 different ways to do this. Second, logging. And third, running the Stardog server as a Linux service. The amount of memory available to Stardog is often the most important factor in performance. Stardog uses both the Java Virtual Machine, or JVM, heap memory, as well as direct or native operating system memory. The first method for configuring server memory sets the amount of memory for each of these. By default, Stardog sets the maximum JVM memory to 2 gigabytes and the maximum direct memory to 1 gigabyte. This will be good for small databases that have less than 100 million triples. For larger databases, use the table in the Stardog documentation to set these 2 values appropriately. To change these values from the default, set and export the environment variable Stardog_server_java_args with the standard JVM options. For example, to set the JVM heap memory to 3 gigabytes and the direct memory to 4 gigabytes, use the following command. Export Stardog server java args equals -xmx3g -xms3g -xx : max direct memory size equals 4G. All of that in double quotes. The second method for configuring server memory uses the memory.mode property defined in the stardog.properties file located in Stardog Home. There are 4 memory consumption modes defined. Default, which is for unknown or equal amounts of queries and updates. Read optimized, which is for infrequent and small transactions. Write optimized, which is for optimal loading and update performance. And bulk load, which is for bulk loading very large databases. Once the database is loaded, the bulk load memory configuration should be changed. Note that the server must be restarted for changes to take effect. Stardog provides 3 types of logs. Access log, which includes all connection-based events such as queries and transactional changes and authentication events. connection boundary events are not logged. The audit log, which is a superset of the access log, and the slow query log, which includes all queries whose execution time exceeds the slow query time property log.slow_query.time, which is by default 10 seconds. All logs are disabled by default. Logs can be written in type text, which is to be read by humans, or type binary, which is machine readable. By default, logging is directed to the Stardog home directory with the file name access.log for the access log, audit.log for the audit log, and slow_query.log for the slow query log. To enable logging, add the appropriate logging properties to the Stardog home stardog.properties file. For example, to enable slow query logging, the logging properties to add to the stardog.properties file are logging.slow_query.enabled equals true and logging.slow_query.type equals text to configure the format of the log file. Note that the server must be restarted for the changes to take effect. Logs can be split into multiple files by defining a file rotation strategy. The trigger to start a new file can be the size of a file in bytes or a fixed time interval. Simply add the appropriate logging file rotation properties to the Stardog home stardog.properties file. For example, to cause the access log to start a new file every day, add the following properties to the stardog.properties file. Logging.access.rotation.type equals time, and logging.access.rotation.limit equals 1D, where that stands for 1 day. On Linux systems, the Stardog server is installed as a service, managed by the standard service daemon systemd. This feature causes the operating system to start the Stardog server when it starts up. The operating system will also shut down the Stardog server when it shuts down. In addition, the operating system will restart the Stardog server in the event of abnormal termination. The Stardog server's environment can be customized by defining environment variables in the file etc stardog.env.shell. For example, if the file etc stardog.env.shell has the contents export stardog home equals var opt stardog, this will cause the Stardog home environment variable to be set to var opt stardog. All databases and other files will be stored in this directory. This concludes the section on server administration. That concludes the Stardog Academy training on database administration, where we learned how to understand Stardog's available user interface options, gain an understanding of basic database operations, and, as an administrator, configure several aspects of the Stardog server. Thanks for following along. If you have any questions, please review our frequently asked questions page or head to docs.stardog.com for additional information.